Good morning. This is Bob Brown. Welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. It is a great Sunday morning. I've already taken off my shoes, walked in the grass. The weather up here is nice.
You're a regular Mr. Rogers. Did you put on a cardigan?
My cars are parked out on the street.
No, cardigan. A cardigan like Mr.
I
Rogers.
can. I love my cars. I can get in my cars again anytime I want and do stuff. I have a little trouble with the bicycle. No,
Try a tricycle. They're easier.
There actually are tricycles. Technically, they're in everyone's life, except for Joe Biden. Well, for him, it was like 90 or 80, whatever he was, when he said, maybe I'm going to stop riding bicycles. And Trump said, in response, and I'm going to get in my golf cart. Yeah. But the beautiful thing is it's B Cube Sunday morning, and we are here to celebrate the Scott's Planet. I see where the authors are starting to get their authors' copies, and I still haven't gone out and read the reviews yet.
You can show the back cover. It's got at least one name I recognize on there. Andrew Roberts. He's great. Also Earl Rusk. And yours truly.
Yeah, it's a good one. Now, what we're doing here at B Cube right now, though, is we had 5 books that were in works this year, and we have got a couple of them out, a couple of them ready to go. We got started with B Cube with Alternative Truths, and it had a few typos in it, a couple. It was our very first book, and it's not the reason it had typos in it.
Sure it is.
We put it out in 100 days from call to putting it on paper and having it in your hands. So
that's like forever, man. I mean, the one we put out in January was 65 days.
Yeah, but
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know.
Go on.
That's okay. Every minute's worth of wisecracks or sidebar commentary is another minute that your beloved guest
oh, you're cruel.
Stare at the camera and wonder, when am I going to get to be on and tell the people why I'm here? So I have one question for your guest. Where
does he get his polo shirts? Because, that's a good question.
No, I was going to ask how hard you were to potty train.
We're not going to go there because I already went there.
Hey, no, but no, it's just that the works are moving forward. I got a note from Deborah wanting to know if she thinks we can get Leadership out by Christmas, because that's a wonderful book coming out, Alternative Leadership, unless I change the name. And we have got many great submissions for our
Alternative Liberties too.
Yeah, alternative. You see, you get to get old, not get senile. I have to face senility runs in my family. But it's all working well. So BQ Press is moving forward and having fun. That's the key thing. I would like, though, Cliff, could you be so kind as to introduce this gentleman that is joining you today?
Sure. So I'll start by saying that I've noticed during my time here as third Sunday host at B Cubed Sunday morning that most of our viewers are, in fact, under 90 years old. And perhaps many of them don't have someone who's over 90 years old they can talk all sorts of stuff with and learn life history. But I am not unfortunate in that way because I grew up with my dad, who is currently 92 years old. He just had a birthday last month. Dad was born in October of 1933 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and has been a observer and participant in our democracy for 92 years. So I thought it would be fun to have him on the show and talk about some living memories, some of the things he's not quite Forrest Gump and getting in the middle of things, but he's done a few things here and there. So let's start. So also, I'm not going to forget this. Dad is a published short story writer, and his story was your legal version of The Three Little Pigs. Where was that published exactly, Dad?
In a magazine called Ink. I was in the first and last issue.
So you killed it.
Well, I was going to say I nailed it, but that's okay.
Somebody came and blew the offices down after that issue was published. Yeah. And we used to have enshrined in Dad's filing cabinet a letter he wrote Disney to make sure he wasn't ruffling any feathers with this publication. Being a lawyer, Dad is a retired lawyer, I should add. And they wrote back saying, "No, public domain, it's all you." The Disney lawyers were like, gave him carte blanche to write anything he wanted on the Three Little Pigs. So he did. And so Dad was a lawyer. He retired and did community theater. Dad's dad, this is not going to surprise you, Bob, literally did vaudeville. And so that sense of humor has cascaded, stumbled, crashed down the family tree into me. And I'm currently instilling it in my kids, and that's just too bad for the world. So Dad also sold some real estate and did other things post-retirement. And currently he is doing my podcast. Yay. So fellow author Dad.
Yes. Previously discussing, you said, Neil, that you were in your fourth childhood.
Well, I've actually reverted back to my first childhood.
Now, so you did that in Milwaukee.
Yes.
mean, did you know Laverne and Shirley?
He was both Lenny and Squiggy.
But I knew the environment. I probably drank in the same tavern, but I'm not sure.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your childhood. 1930s, United States of America, Great Depression. FDR becomes president shortly before you're born. And he starts doing family chats, fireside chats on the radio. And what was that like, listening to the fireside chats as a little kid?
Well, I was born into the first year of President Roosevelt's administration in a family of solid Democratic voters and believers in the Democrat Party. We were looking to Roosevelt, not I, but my family, looking to Roosevelt to take us out of the Depression. And to us, as with so many people at that time, he was just below God in our admiration. So when we turned on the fireside chats, and he had this wonderful voice, we sat around this big 15-tube Philco radio, staring at it the way you would stare at a television set.
Did it ever do anything while you stared at it?
Pardon?
Did it ever do anything while you stared at it?
No, but it mesmerized us, and we sat there in awe. And we watched him take us through the Depression, which he was helped by the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor by taking us into the war and into war production. That's actually what brought us out of the Depression. And that's basically the first time I realized that we weren't poor. My folks had, until I was born, maybe there's an omen there, had
Another mouth to feed, and suddenly, what happened?
a small chain of supermarkets in Milwaukee, which they lost because my father listened to Herbert Hoover, who said, extend credit, prosperity is right around the corner. So he extended credit. And then when it came time to collect, his customers decided they had to pay cash. They go to the AMP supermarket, which was less expensive. So they lost everything in the Depression. And growing up poor, we didn't really know we were poor because nobody had anything. And then with the improved economy during the war years, we suddenly realized that there was more to life than just hand to mouth. But we were still in our precious democracy, which, by the way, I think we're on the verge of losing.
We'll get there.
And in that vein, I saw several threats. World War II was not really a threat to our democracy because there was no way we would lose. The real threat came in the very late 40s, early 50s with McCarthyism. And that was a time that we were all scared. We were frightened that our democracy was gone. But fortunately, we lived through that, in part thanks to an obscure lawyer from the Hale and Dorr firm in Boston, who headed up the Army hearings, and he actually destroyed McCarthy.
So we're getting pretty far into the future now. We're in the 1950s.
Well,
I want to dial it back
okay.
to the end of the 30s, the start of the 40s. Let's talk about Pearl Harbor. Do you remember first? How did you? I mean, you were still pretty young when Pearl Harbor came. You were like 8 years old.
Do the math, right?
Yes, I did the math. So what was that like, learning about Pearl Harbor as a kid? How did it feel?
Actually, I was out in front of the house with a friend playing sidewalk tennis, if you will, hitting a little tennis ball back and forth over the crack in the cement. And my mother opened the door and said, quick, come in the house. The president's on the radio. And we came in and listened to his Day of Infamy speech. And we were all stunned. How could this happen? We were isolated. We had the oceans separating all of the rest of the world, and yet this happened. We were all dumbfounded.
Were you worried about like a Japanese and German invasion of the mainland U.S.?
Only peripherally, when a Japanese submarine off the coast of California actually shells California, it showed our vulnerability, because up to then, even though there was a war going on both continents, we were safe. So yeah, that was. We weren't so much worried about an onslaught, if you will, but we suddenly realized isolationism doesn't work.
Sure. So So in a way, I guess Pearl Harbor was your initial awareness of a global society,
Right?
right? Like kind of a negative, but still, here we are, right? We're all interconnected. So now we're in 1941, 1942. You are the youngest of four children. So you had an older brother and two brother-in-laws who were older than you. Were your sisters already married by 1941, or was that after the war?
They, after it began, and they both
Okay.
met servicemen. They married servicemen that they met who came to Milwaukee. Well, my older sister married uh, a submariner, if you will, from New Jersey, and the next sister married a local boy who was in the Coast Guard. So I was introduced to and my brother enlisted in 42
In the Army.
in the Army Air Force. So yeah, I was keenly aware at that point of the war and its potential effects.
Did your brother write frequent letters back home to your parents, or did you get
Yes, he
to
did.
those?
He did, but because of censorship, he couldn't be too detailed.
Sure.
But actually, he had it pretty good. He was first stationed in England, where he was able to attend the American University in Shrivenham, England. Then he was transferred to Italy, and
Was
had
that
unique.
after we had defeated the Axis in Italy, or was that before? Was he
Uh, that
in
was
combat?
before there was still fighting going on in northern Italy, and at one point, German paratroopers landed on the far end of the base that he was stationed in, just outside of Naples.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, he had the unique experience of being able to join a group of soldiers who got in to meet the Pope and were blessed by the Pope. And he managed to get three rosaries that were taken to the Pope and blessed by him. And he was, at the time he enlisted, he was a student at Marquette University. And so he sent the rosaries to the dean of the School of Administration, to the dean of uh, the university, and to the president of the university. Yeah, and that was kind of unique experience for them.
Yeah, they were pretty happy about it, as I recall you're telling me.
Yeah, they wrote a magnificent letter to my parents. Anyway, the war was the beginning for us, as for the nation, if you will, of the expansion of the middle class. And with the GI Bill of Rights, when the war was over, uh, you suddenly had all of these people who would never have gone to college because of finances were now able to become, educated in the various professions and the various uh, disciplines, and gave us now a very big, broad middle class, which was missing during the earlier years before the war.
So, as the 40s went on and you became a teenager in Milwaukee, um, do you want to talk? Do you want to talk about hitchhiking to St. Louis at all, and swimming pool or any of that?
Now you're digging into my delinquent youth.
Yeah, I think the statute of limitations has run out, though, so safe talking about it.
Well, my father and I had a few disagreements. And when I was 15, I literally ran away from home, and I partially hitchhiked and partially took a train from Milwaukee to Chicago, then to St. Louis, where I spent a couple of weeks, or 1 week solid, realizing finally that if I continued in this vein, I would end up literally a bum. So, but I couldn't go directly home with my tail between my legs. So I hitchhiked out to New Jersey, where my brother-in-law and sister lived, and from there was able
Was
to.
that Uncle Sam and
Yes, yeah, Uncle Sam.
I had a literal Uncle Sam, people. Anyway, go on.
And then I had a sister-in-law who was a social worker who went to the principal of the school and arranged that I could come back with no recriminations and just pick up where I left off, which I did. And fortunately, went on to college and was able to carve a career for myself.
Now, you served in the Army during the Korean War. That was before college, right?
Actually, no. In my junior year, President Eisenhower announced that he was going to do away with the GI Bill of Rights. And since I was working my way through college, I felt I'm going to be drafted, but probably after he kills the GI Bill of Rights. So I preempted that by volunteering for the draft in 1954. And
So that was the tail end of the Korean War, right?
actually, it was after the armistice.
Okay.
The shooting war was over. There was still a question of possibility of something breaking out. I had the opportunity of picking my duty station at that time after basic training, and I did not want to go to Okinawa because of the possibility of, if something broke out, that would be right in the midst of it. So I instead went to the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, but that's another story. In any event, the GI Bill was killed 6 months after I was drafted, so I had that help to take me through my senior year and my law school years.
So, for those just joining us, this is my 92-year-old dad. We're talking about the last 92 years. I'm going to go back just briefly from the 1950s back down to the 40s. And I was because my brother-in-law, David, had a question for you. In 1945, you were, most of the year, you were 11. And what was it like? My question is, what was VE Day like when there was victory in Europe? And what was it like finding out about Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
We had mixed emotions. My family did. I was happy that the war was over and Japan.
And we're talking about the bomb, not VE Day right now.
Yeah, I'm talking about VJ Day. And we believed what we heard from the administration, that by launching these two devastating bombs, we may have saved at least 1 million GI lives if they had to attack and invade Japan. We accepted that. Later, we were hit with the horrendous effects of this and began to question, was it really necessary? But we were more concerned with VE Day and the end of the Nazi era, because by then we had learned about the Holocaust, about the concentration camps, about the crematoria and all that.
How did that knowledge hit your family when you found out? Did you find out from the newsreels? I know Mom found out from the newsreels.
Yes, that's how we found out. We did. It was kept out of the newspapers largely. and there's a lot of goes into that, how our country reacted, how our government reacted to the concentration camps. That's a different story. But in our family, we suddenly understood why many of our relatives never got to the United States and never got out of the concentration camps. Fortunately, no one from the immediate family, these would have been cousins and maybe three times removed, but they were there and suddenly they were not. But so the victory in Europe was a much, much more personal victory for us. But then we moved on. Life goes on.
So now we're in the 1950s. The VA bill has enabled a larger group of people to enter college and broaden the middle class. And we went from, yes, Bob, you have a question.
Yeah, something you said. Not you, Cliff. Neil.
That's okay. I didn't say anything worth listening to.
Ah, you did. You're doing okay. Neil, you said we knew why. When you discovered the.
Oh, Bob just froze.
Bob, we just lost you.
Okay, Bob is frozen. I'm going to move on, and we'll get to Bob's question when Bob
as soon as he defrosts.
As soon as he defrosts, yeah, exactly. Bob, step out of the icebox. Okay, so we're now, we kind of skipped over, we went straight from FDR to Ike. Let's talk about Harry S. Truman, right? Like, I've got in my living room something from my childhood, a little figurine of Harry S. Truman that you guys bought at some point. He was apparently a revered figure, despite qualms about dropping the atomic bomb. What was he like? I mean, what was it like when FDR died? First of all, how did your family react, and then Harry S. Truman becoming president?
Our reaction was typical. We cried. We mourned. In our experience, he was bringing an end to bigotry in this country as far as the Jews were concerned. And therefore, we thought we lost a stalwart champion, if you will. We didn't know some of the intricacies that later changed our opinion. Bob, are you back?
I think I am. I don't know what happened.
Good.
All right. So what was your question, Bob?
Okay, you'd mentioned relatives,
something about...
Apparently this question does not want to be spoken.
Is the NSA up there or what?
Just don't worry about it. We're going to talk Truman until he gets back. So you mourned FDR, but Harry S. Truman became president.
Did you know? Was there awareness among the Jewish population?
Try again. Third time's the charm.
I said something about I knew why, and you were questioning that.
Were you aware that when the Jewish American population, was there an awareness that why you weren't hearing from your family that they were indeed detained in these camps?
There was no awareness until after we basically saw newsreels of the camps.
Okay. Well, yeah, I caught that part. I just said, you said now you knew why everything had gone dark, so to speak. And that's for me, that was just kind of a question of what did you suspect? What did you think? What were the thoughts running through the people's head as family connections across the Atlantic disappeared?
Yeah, but our relatives were coming over. People here who came first were accumulating cash to send over to buy passage for the people, and suddenly that stopped. And we never fully understood why our relatives were not coming over anymore. Was it because they couldn't get visas, or they denied exit, or did they just not want to leave? Up until Hitler, there were thriving communities in Poland, in Russia, that a lot
Ukraine.
of people wouldn't want to leave.
Yeah, Odessa was like a third Jewish at one point, something like that.
Well,
Yeah, in Poland.
In Poland, in Warsaw, you had almost a literary renaissance in Jewish literature, and people were finally able to get education, which they were denied previously. So yeah, it was not quite a golden age for Judaism, if you will, at that time. And then suddenly it all went black.
What an absolute betrayal. The point that I want to draw from what you just said is the importance of the free flow of information.
Yeah.
If the American public had actually been allowed to have been informed of what was going on, if the communities knew what was happening to their family, to their relatives, etc., other than just darkness. That's why as I watch ICE grabbing people off the street and taking them without communications, putting people away, this whole thing just scares the piss out of me, as all of these things that happen in the darkness um, is where these lizards of society find safety in darkness, and we've got to keep the darkness away. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt your point.
No, I'd like to pick up on that, because just recently I watched a couple of movies that dealt with the early stages of Nazism in Germany, and then as it swept into Poland. And the parallel is perfect. I mean, there's no deviation. What's going on right now with ICE is a replica, if you will, of what the Gestapo was doing in Germany and then in Poland. And it's frightening. And without a free press, which is being there is an attempt to suppress the free press. And without the free press, there's no knowledge, there's no democracy, there's no freedom. And that's frightening. And what's happening, the pressures that's being put on universities and trying to control how they educate their students is scary. Because I didn't live through it, but I lived to see it. I saw it, and I see the parallels, just as you have alluded to. And then I'm thinking of, I was fortunate enough, we haven't gotten that far in my life, but I was fortunate enough in 1963 to take part in the last part of the Freedom March with Martin Luther King.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. So let's go there. Let's set the stage.
Because of the parallels, yeah.
Yeah. So we're now in the late 50s, moving into the early 60s. Still haven't talked about Truman, but maybe we'll get back to that. And now we have Jack Kennedy getting elected. What was that like in 1960?
It was Camelot. It was. I was older than the young attorneys that were flocking to Washington because they wanted to work in the Kennedy administration. I was already there. I was an attorney with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and I watched these young, really bright guys who they didn't want to go to the big law firms. They wanted to come to Washington to work for the Kennedy administration. And we were getting the best and the brightest. And, life looked rosy. The future looked terrific. And then suddenly the bottom dropped out.
We'll get to the bottom dropping out. I want to stay in Camelot for a little longer, if that's
Okay.
all right with you. So I've got I'd rather be on Mars Smithsonian mug with all the Martian lander missions on there. Jack Kennedy famously said in his address to the nation, quite crazy sounding, we will put a man on the moon and bring him back safely. You were already an adult at this point. What was it like? Did you hear that speech on TV or see it on TV or what? And how did you react to the idea that the United States would like literally put a man on the moon?
Science fiction. It was a nice thing to say in our heated war, well, not heated, almost
Cold War.
War with Russia, our competition with Russia. So we said that, my father can beat your father.
So
that we didn't believe it could be done.
Interesting. So Stephen King has written in Dance Macabre about his childhood and about learning about the Sputnik satellite.
Yeah.
How did finding out the Russians had launched a satellite, how did that affect you, if at all? This was now back in the 1950s.
It really didn't. It was meaningless. They shot a rocket up there and it didn't go anywhere, came back. It was interesting, but it didn't mean anything.
So Andrew Lucas writes, was I born? I was born in time that I remember landing on the moon is the first historical memory I have. I was 3 years old, but we'll get there. So Jack Kennedy is president, and then also Martin Luther King was a rising star in the early 60s. And tell me how you first came to be aware of Reverend Dr. King as a political figure.
Well, my then wife, may she rest in peace, was you could only characterize her as a flaming liberal.
She was also a redhead, so yes.
Yeah, and it was she who brought my attention to Martin Luther King and the plight of the Negroes. I mean, we were aware of it, but we didn't focus on it. And suddenly he brought the focus on how desperate things were.
For the whole nation?
Yes. And so that's when we became interested in the various causes, the Freedom March, the Freedom Fighters, what happened in Selma at the bridge.
How did you react to the news from Selma?
Furious. We're furious, but we felt our hands were tied.
What way?
What could we as individuals do other than, I couldn't take off and go marching, so we could make contributions and, we could try and get our friends and neighbors, if you will, to be aware of what's going on and maybe support the anti-apartheid efforts in this country. But no, did I have the courage to be like Shermer and the three heroic figures who went down south and got murdered. No, I had my responsibilities to my family, which is essentially to you.
Well, I wasn't born yet.
No, but you were going to be.
Yeah, I was.
And, you know, and I was trying to build
Spoiler
up,
alert.
I'm trying to build up, if you will, an estate that will be comfortable for after you're born. You know, I grew up, I realized later, I grew up poor. I was a depression kid. So I was keenly aware of making sure that I would have financial security for my progeny. And that did not entail going on missions, taking sabbaticals. It meant just working hard.
So you felt you had the early childhood experience living through the Great Depression made you very different from the mindset of a baby boomer who grew up in the post-war prosperity.
Yes.
In that regard.
And it even carries over to today when, yeah, you don't want to throw something out because it possibly is usable. And you don't know what tomorrow will bring. There's always that depression mentality stays with you.
All right. So you're in DC in 1963. You're working as a lawyer, a fairly young lawyer, I think, at that point, for the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And you find out how that Reverend Dr. King is going to give a speech on the Mall and do a march. How did you first find out that was going to be the case?
Well, not to disillusion you, I had no idea.
So when the marchers went by your office, then you found out.
It was lunchtime, and two of my co-workers and I went for a walk.
All right.
We ended up on Pennsylvania Avenue, and we see this group come marching down, and we became aware of what it was. And I looked up there, and I saw one of my law school professors, all the way from Wisconsin, in that march.
Do you remember his name?
I think it was Professor Rice, okay. R-I-C-E. And I looked and I said, well, if he can do it, why can't I? And so I left my friends and I joined the march and continued down to the mall.
Before we get to the mall, did you try and talk your friends into coming? Did they express concerns?
Yeah, no, they were content to watch.
And so I think it's safe to say you were radicalized by your professor from UW-Madison?
He brought out the inner radical of me in me. So
right.
The innate radical.
So you were in this crowd. Yeah, it was a pretty big crowd.
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And we go down to the mall, and it's just a sea of humanity. And I was there in the back. Fortunately, they had amplifiers for the speech.
Now we're talking amplifiers up and down the sides of the reflecting pool in the mall at Washington, D.C. I'm setting the stage. If you see those famous photographs of Martin Luther King Jr. speaking with the Washington Monument in the background, those are my favorite photos of my dad. He's like 1 pixel in the back.
Right. Somewhere back in that sea of humanity is I have a full head of hair then. And
that's why I didn't recognize you in the photo.
Right. And it was amazing. You're touching people on both sides of you. You're shoulder to shoulder practically. And people were so polite and so careful not to offend or to cause a problem. And I was awestruck. And then you hear
by the crowd.
Yeah. And then you hear the speech. And the man is one of the most remarkable orators of our time. And yeah, it was a remarkable memory, one that I'm so happy I was part of.
So Cheryl writes, why do we always say radicalized instead of liberalized? That's a good question. I was kind of kidding about being radicalized in this case, but yeah, liberalized is, I mean, he was already a liberal. So, but you became an activist in that moment. And do you remember any police presence at the event?
Oh, I wasn't aware of anything but watching the stage.
All right. So you were pretty far back, but you would say that Dr. King's speech, this is the I Have a Dream speech, folks, by the way.
That's correct.
Was kind of riveting, that he had a lot of presence even in the back row.
Well, because it was amplified so you could hear it.
Sure.
And you could see people on the stage, couldn't identify. The only reason I knew it was Martin Luther King is he was center in front of the microphone. But from where I was standing, I couldn't identify his features, but I could hear his voice. I can almost still hear his voice.
That's awesome. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about like the end of Camelot. Where were you when you first heard that JFK had been assassinated?
I was in my office at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the announcement came that President Kennedy had been assassinated, and we were shutting down the markets for fear of a panic sell-off. So we shut off the New York Stock Exchange, the American Stock Exchange. We put an end to over-the-counter trading. Everything came to a halt. And that was, of course, determined by the commission itself. And those of us who were the attorneys and the accountants and the clerks were just dumbfounded. And we couldn't believe it could happen. And we were stunned.
Did you, because I've watched the footage of Walter Cronkite breaking down on camera. Did you see that? Or was that you were at work?
I was at work.
Yeah. And now we had President Johnson. Do you have any, and you know, as the 60s went on, you had Johnson and the Civil Rights Act. So I was actually, as you know, I sang in an opera about Lady Bird Johnson and her train tour of the South in 1964, trying to drum up votes for LBJ in the wake of the Civil Rights Act. But how did you feel at the time about the Civil Rights Act and its passing? And did you think that was going to sink the Democratic ticket in 1964? Or?
Well, as I told you, we were flaming liberals, and we were thrilled. And we actually believed it took Kennedy's assassination and LBJ's ascension to the presidency to enable the Civil Rights Act. And so we are so proud of him. We are in such support of him until the Bay of Tompkins thing. We were disillusioned that he suddenly became a warmonger, from a peacenik, if you will, and a civil rights advocate.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he lost us as far as supporting him for re-election.
So, so then we had, I mean, Johnson did get elected again and served a second term. And then we had the Bobby Kennedy assassination and MLK's assassination. Do you want to talk about that? Or I guess those came first before the end of his second term. Yeah, they came in 1968.
The only I can tell you about both of them is that we were so concerned about the Russian involvement, and were they behind these assassinations, beginning with Kennedy, with Jack, and then with Robert, and then with Jack Ruby shooting
Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oswald, yeah. So we were wondering, what are we being invaded by Russian operatives? Yeah, so that was a big concern. No, to this day, we're not satisfied with the outcome of the committee reports. We still think the cover-up has not been fully explored, and we'll never know. Records are sealed, records are lost, records are destroyed. And
So then,
maybe it isn't a nefarious involvement, but we're not ever quite sure the CIA wasn't involved in all this.
the CIA was involved in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but were they behind the assassinations? And that was a question that was never satisfactorily explored and resolved.
so the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theory started immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So now we're going to go into Tricky Dicky, Richard M. Nixon, and the Apollo missions. Now, you had said that you thought back in 1961 that that's ridiculous, that's science fiction. And now we're launching Apollo 8 and we're launching Apollo 10 and we're circling the moon and getting ready to land on it. What were your feelings about that?
Pride.
We're
suddenly
go into that.
Well, the Russians really outfoxed us and beat us into space. And at the time, I mean, who cared? You know, a monkey went up or a dog went up and came back. So what? But now, when we realize the possibilities of actually landing somebody on the moon, now it was like rooting for your favorite ball team. We're right behind them. Go to it. Go beat them. Go score that touchdown.
And so, did you see it as a demonstration of American military prowess in rocketry, or did you just see it as like the moon is a goal? It's not a Cold War military goal. It's just a goal at the time.
It was a validation of our industrial and scientific superiority. You know, we were chauvinistic in that respect. This is our country. We need to be the best. We are the best, and now we're proving to be the best. So there's a great deal of pride there.
And so, as I alluded to earlier, Mom got me out of bed and said, "This is history," and I watched the moon landing at the age of 3 and formed a permanent memory of that. Were you at work at the time? Because I think it was during the day.
Yeah, I was. And so I couldn't see it on TV, but we heard the radio commentators describing the event. And to the extent we possibly could, we stopped working and listened.
Was it a bit like listening to a ball game on the radio?
No, it was almost like sitting around that 15-tube Philco, staring at it and listening to the voice and trying to visualize it. Yeah, it was quite exciting.
I think that's the perfect place to end this particular interview because it goes back to the beginning and also ends with appropriate for a publishing house that does a lot of science fiction, ends with humanity landing on the moon. So I would like to thank my dad for agreeing for braving the technological challenges and coming on to this podcast at long last. And I think it's safe to say that we might want to have you come again and talk some more about world history and American history, which is to say, your memories.
And Bob, thank you for suffering my presence. I appreciate it.
Suffering. Your presence does not cause any suffering, and there's no endurance involved here. There is simply an appreciation. And when we get off, I will, and or this when the show ends. Yeah, we'll have a short chat if you're available because things have progressed.
I would enjoy that.
Well, good. No, because yes, it does involve having you come back. Uh, yeah, but right now, I just want to share that we have got lots of stuff going on. We have I liked your discussion, by the way, of the protests because there's a point when you are observing it, and then when you observe it, you realize that simply observing it isn't enough, and that's about it. I mean, what drove me into Portland uh, was when they took a naval officer and beat him up, broke bones, just because he said, "Are you sure this is the right thing to be doing?" To you know, he was wearing his Annapolis t-shirt, sweatshirt when they did it too. Uh, so you, no, you. This is something I definitely want you back. I wasn't a history major, but I have one silly little history piece. When I was in the 8th grade, they asked me to participate in what was in Kansas. Uh, they called it the Emporia State, and they wanted me to participate in history. Now, I had nothing. My idea of history was I had read books on the Civil War and such. So I read some history, wound up winning the contest, but just the awareness that history gets lost and the history of our reactions, our feelings, and our senses, and what we think when it's going on. I mean, I can still hear my grandfather. I can still hear in my head what he said when he was watching the news over the L.A. riots back in the '60s. It's so I believe history needs preservation, not interpretation, and
And
so
Bob, when I come back, I would like to revisit or to visit, if you will, the school integration problems in the South. I was in Memphis uh, visiting with the sheriff uh, and his tales about integration and the virtual race wars that
I
it entails.
that would be brilliant. And now here again, I'll co-opt what you just said with my own narrative, and that is that my granddaughter. This is what scares me. In her lifetime, Ruby Bridges was a little girl, went to school, and what they don't always tell us is she spent the entire school year alone in a room with one teacher because that was the only teacher that would come teach her. So
Mm.
she had the best education possible. And but my granddaughter got to hear her speak, and she's still alive and writing, by the way. Uh,
He
and uh,
is.
and so we have gone from a forced integration literally at the threat of a gun, uh, to trying to undo it all. And my granddaughter has went to Ruby Bridges School, named after her, and got to meet her personally. And it's just that's the kind of stuff that someday when we're all dead and she's a 90-year-old woman, she'll be able to tell that story. And
Yeah, this week was on Friday was Ruby Bridges Day. I think it was Friday, and the kids were encouraged to walk to school and wear purple in honor of Ruby Bridges.
yeah, my dream is to someday have her on this show, uh, and let her be on this show with my granddaughter, who's um, just to be able to say, "Hey, this is what it means to me." Um, but yes, sir, I will want you back on this show. And I may actually, but that's something we can talk about in a minute. Right now, what I want to do is say, guys, um, we're moving forward. I need well, let me rephrase that. I'm not short of submissions for alternative liberties too, but I am reading through them. No matter how fast I read, reject, process, I am living in a world of approximately 100 open submissions, and they're coming in at 3 or 4 a day. And so we're just processing through them. If you're curious about your status of your submissions for uh, the leadership one that Deborah Godfrey is working on, I literally assembled the book that we're going to start plugging the accepted stories into. So BQ Press's things are moving forward thanks to great writers like your son here, uh, who has published, I believe, 3 times with us.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, 3 times. Southern Truths. I have the wrote the introduction to Alternative Liberties, and I'm in Scott's Planet.
Yeah, and Neil,
Yes.
once a writer, always a writer. Get your button the chair and your fingers on the keyboard and see if something comes to you, because we accept essays. I could have taken a verbatim transcript of what you said and found an essay that I would have cheerfully published. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm going to say. Thank you, everybody. And in this street, okay. So, end.
Bye, everyone.